All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Bang on time, 11 o'clock. I know it's strange for our press conferences, but there you go. As you can see, we've got our administrator, Rian Oberholzer. We've got the general manager of amateur rugby, Danny Jones, and we've got our coach, John Dobson. Each of these gents is just going to have an address for you to cover the various areas of this press conference, and then we'll turn it over to questions. So Rian, if we can start with you, the heritage claim, maybe if you can just speak on the impact that potentially has on us and where we're going from here.
Yeah, sure. That's thank you guys for being here. We have been quite far down the line on the sale of Newlands end of last year with a independent RFP process that we ran, headed up by independent property brokers. As you're all aware, then the heritage application was made by Mr. Van Claassen, and that put a halt to any of the proceedings. So the companies that were interested in obtaining the properties around Newlands all came back to us and said that they cannot proceed any further with the process until the heritage matter has been resolved. That makes a lot of sense. Nobody's going to buy something that afterwards they cannot utilize for whatever purposes they wanted to buy the property for. I'm going to ask Danny to come in here, Mike, just to give you guys a bit of a background. Why are we at a stage where Newlands need to be sold? I think that is important for us to understand as well.
Thank you, Rian, and good morning to all of you. As you're well aware, that the discussion with regard to moving to Cape Town Stadium started post-2010, as such as the professional arm playing in this beautiful stadium. The union, which is the clubs and the EXCO, engaged with the matter, and over the last, from 2016, negotiations with the city started and then was formalized in 2019. At council level, the decision was taken to move to Cape Town Stadium. That was a done effort. Out of that, obviously, was then the sweating of the properties of Newlands so that we could get commercial viability through that. And all our properties, including Newlands, was party to that process. Then in 2019 and 2020, with regard to the previous processes around Investec, we engaged with Investec and we signed heads of agreement with regard to the sale of Newlands. After Investec, we engaged with the Dreamworld flight and we signed off on that in 2020. So that gives you the process around that Newlands was by then going to be mothballed and developed, and Western Province would then, obviously the union would then derive economic value out of those processes. So when Rian came on board, we were the EXCO, as you know, as well as the council was involved in those processes, who to dispose the Newlands facility to. And Rian had just carried on with that process under the auspices of SA Rugby. There has been sign off by General Council on both moving to Cape Town Stadium as well as the disposal of our property assets to commercialize them fully. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, Danny. So that was the process. So what is the consequences of a successful heritage application? It is absolutely will mean the end of Western Province Rugby Football Union as we know it. There's an outstanding amount of money that was received by Western Province Rugby Football Union from Flight Dreamworld that need to be repaid. If Newlands cannot be sold, where is that money going to come from? That's the one issue that is very important. So that will affect not only Western Province Rugby Football Union, but obviously the company and the Stormers. So it is important for us to build on the success of the move to Cape Town Stadium. there's also a fallacy that Newlands can be revived and rugby can be played there again. Now, it can happen, rugby can be played there, but the Stormers will never play there again. That is because of the agreement that was reached between Western Province Rugby Football Union, the PTY and the city. We are in a 30-year agreement with the city to play our games at Cape Town Stadium. So, if the heritage application is successful, and we still don't know what Wynand wants to do with the property once he has successfully turned it into a heritage site. One thing cannot happen. Western Province can never go back there again. So we have to understand that, number one. Number two, who's going to upkeep the stadium? And who's going to pay for whatever great plans Wynand has? Because the property still belongs to Western Province Rugby Football Union. And Western Province Rugby Football Union will then have some kind of an obligation towards the upkeep of the stadium. Which, as Danny said, the decision was taken to mothball that stadium many years ago. So that is the second challenge that we face. So what we are concerned about is that an ill-informed process to turn it into a heritage site is going to be so detrimental to Western Province Rugby that I cannot foresee how they're going to succeed digging themselves out of that hole. We're also concerned about the motive of the heritage application. Somebody that's got no affiliation to Western Province Rugby Football Union, that's got no affiliation to Newlands Stadium, is now the speaker of the heritage of the stadium. I think he played one test match at Newlands. So we must be careful that we do not fall into that trap, that rhetoric that this is the history that need to be saved by not moving, not changing ownership of Newlands. We have moved on. We are not going back. And I think people must understand that. That decision has been taken. That bus has left. They're not going to happen again. So we're not going to go back. Now that it is a public participation, we are asking those that the public out there to support us. 100 plus clubs have agreed for the sale of Newlands. So surely it is they that have the biggest say in whether there is a heritage that need to be preserved or not. Thanks.
All right, and then Dobbo, could you just hear from you on the move and how it's affected the team, memories you've already made here and going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys know me well enough, and a lot of you guys actually wrote about my dad, who wrote the history of Newlands, wrote to me nice messages after my dad passed away. He was the guy who said he's going to leave Newlands kicking, you're never going to come here. And now I was probably of a similar ilk. I love Newlands and I've got amazing memories, but the transition to here it's been spectacular from a playing and from the team point of view. I can tell you now from the team's perspective, we are incredibly happy here. I don't think there's one person, if I'm a convert, and I'd be the worst one the hardest to convert. These guys have got no affiliation with Newlands whatsoever at the moment. There's no interest in going there. There's no necessarily fond memories even with this team. They've got very, very fond memories of the Cape Town Stadium already, and they're going to make much more. And what actually was interesting, when we came back from Clermont, the last game we played, we talked about we spent a couple of hours about the story of Western Province Rugby, the story of us and where we've come from and where we want to go. And it goes back to, this is a sport, and I might be going off mic, your question is slightly here, but we've withstood, we went into the whole team went into this history, and we went at the rugby started, we all know the Hamiltons and the Villagers story, 1875, but Roslins are founded on the Grand Parade only 6 or 7 years later. Thistles was a club with a Scottish fisherman provided jerseys from the harbour, which was formed in the Grand Parade, then moved to District 6, and group areas was moved out to Bonte here. But whatever the story, we've withstood, it was slaves within the Muslim community. We've understood got through colonialism, we've got through apartheid, got through the sports federation divided, the Western Province, the Boer War, where the Western Province divided over in the Second World War, who was against the war campaign. And the one trait the team came up with at this whole thing was resilience and moving forward. Those were what they thought the traits were. Because if people could play rugby in the streets of Workup or District 6, where there were 16 clubs before it was removed, rugby here will survive It's critical. The most important thing for this team and for us is that rugby survives and thrives in the Western Cape, like it has done for 150 years. And so any threat to that we would take very seriously as a team, because we are clear where we're going, we want to go. Like Sulaiman Hartzenberg's story from Manenberg, gets an opportunity to get a better education than he maybe ordinarily got through rugby, comes to the Western Province Training Site, now is a stormer playing at Cape Town Stadium. I can assure you that Newlands has absolutely no part of his fibre whatsoever. And in fact, we played, during that story bus, you were there, Mike, I played some clips, you know, of the 74 Lions, and you could see a very different stadium. I've got good memories there, but there were a lot of people, and the majority of people were excluded from that stadium. And my memories are great, but they were excluded, that's the truth. And they were kept in one area. In fact, in my dad's collection at home is a picture of the fairs that Darnie Craven produced to welcome the people of the South Sound to Newlands when he opened that, and they renamed it, I think, in 1984, whatever year it was. So I've gone into a bit much as I normally do in the past, and